Hi guys, welcome to this week's episode. Hope you've had a fantastic week. I have been super busy. Check out what I've been up to. So, it's been a really crazy week. As I said last week, I had taken a hiatus previously, and then last week was my first week out where I was kind of attending gigs. I wasn't actually gigging myself, but the gigs have now started. I can no longer be on my hiatus because I need to get paid. So I have been doing some weddings. TheInThing went out and we did a wedding in Luton. It was amazing. The band obviously were amazing, and I'm not blowing my own horn, but toot toot. It was a great day. Everyone loved the music. The bride and groom was super happy. In fact, I did 2 weddings on Saturday. I did a ceremony and a reception. So yeah, it's been busy on that front. I've also been in rehearsals for a massive artist. I can't actually mention his name because the gigs will not have happened before this goes out. So stay tuned on social media. So you might get a snippet as to who that might be, but I'm not allowed to tell you officially. But all I'm saying is social media, guys. But what I wanted to talk to you about this week is the studio versus live and the differences between the two, how I feel about them, and I guess where my experience lies. So obviously as a BV, you can get work that's live and you can get work that's in the studio. And funny enough, because I work with so many different people, my work is pretty varied. But I do know people who primarily work in the studio, and separate to them, there's people who primarily do live. They do cross over, but you find that people prefer one or the other. So in my history, I've primarily been a live singer. So I do gigs, and once they go out, that's it. You don't have any record of it unless somebody's recording. With social media now, everything's on the internet, so you probably will catch some of the performances, but not officially. And then for other things, other projects, it's been purely studio. So I've worked on a few albums for pop artists and various different projects, which I've loved as well. But they're very distinctly different in terms of the approach. So when you're in a live environment, it's very much about creating an atmosphere and creating the vibe. Essentially, you are working with maybe one other person or 2 other people, and you're supposed to create an atmosphere that people enjoy to come and see your show. I'm very experienced at this because I know how to evoke a reaction from the crowd, because you know what works, you know what doesn't work, you know how people respond and what excites them, what doesn't work so well, so you kind of tweak things to work in those kinds of environments. You also, a bit more animated, so you move a lot and you kind of give a show. Whereas in the studio, there's no audience to feed off of, so essentially you're just recording something in terms of how you want it to sound as a finished product. And also, you can do absolutely anything you want. Creatively, you can experiment. You can try with different harmonies. You can play with different textures. Obviously, you can manipulate your vocal or your performance to sound different to what you would sound like on a live gig. And this is the joys of creativity in a studio, because you have so many options. And obviously, on a live gig, there's only so many things you can do. So in a creative space like a studio, there's lots of different things that you can play with. So people say, what do you prefer? Do you prefer the studio? Do you prefer live? I think now I'm starting to enjoy the studio because I'm starting to write my own stuff and I'm starting to work with different producers. I'm understanding why people spend whole nights in a studio, because it's like once you get into the creative flow of stuff, it's very difficult to walk away. And you can just there's so many ideas that you can experiment with. And I see why people end up, spending hours and hours, even if not days, in a studio creating. And once you get in the zone, it's hard to come away, because you kind of break the creative concentration. But in the studio, in a live gig, an audience makes a humongous difference. Like feeding back from people and seeing smiles and people dancing and enjoying the performance, it does give you like a boost, which you can't get in a studio unless you create an artificial environment of an audience, which never really works anyway. But as I'm starting to be more creative myself, I do feel like it's a little bit more vulnerable in the studio, because you are doing it in the hope that people get it, and there's no immediate feedback. Essentially, you have to do it because you love it and then put it out and hope people love it too. But obviously in a live gig, the response is immediate. Like, you can see if people like it, because if they're stood there like this, you obviously have work to do. If they're, you know, kind of involved, clapping, singing along, then you know that you're doing a good job. So it's kind of like an immediate response. But what I'm starting to really love about the studio is that when you collaborate with people, as I have been doing, big shout out to Jake and Dave, who I've been writing with this week. It's like the ideas really flow. If you work with people that you get on with, that you can bounce off of each other, and that's great. And it's something that I'm not that versed with, because I haven't really wanted to be an artist in the past. I've kind of shied away from it, but now I'm super like excited about what we can come up with. So there's lots of projects that we're working on, and yeah, I'm really excited about it, guys. So I say all this to say, if there's anyone out there who writes, produces, or, you know, demos stuff, get in touch with us, because we want to find people to collaborate with. Or if you want to collaborate with, find people that you want to collaborate with, write in the comment section. You never know who's out there, and you know, within the day of the internet, like, you can access as many people in a very short space of time. So make sure that you comment in the section below. Make sure you get at us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Google+, Snapchat, the works. Get in touch. We love to hear from you. We want to collaborate. So if you've got any ideas, or you want to find people to work with, it's the perfect place, guys. All that remains for me to say is get creating, and bye.